All right. So this is the first Day One Cricket podcast. Welcome everyone who's watching or not watching. Today we've got a really good guest on, Charlie, on the What's He's On About podcast, from the What's He's On About podcast. So Charlie, maybe tell us a bit about yourself, how the love for cricket came about and what your channel's all about, mate.
Taran, it's a pleasure to be on, I must say. Well, my love for cricket started from a very, very young age, probably too young for me to remember, bashing it around in the under-9 stuff. And then a bit later down the line, which is where I am now, I started just really having this desire to just talk about cricket, really, Taran, and started building up the What's He On About Cricket podcast, doing weekly podcasts, posting every day on TikTok and Instagram. Started with the faceless stuff because, you know, you don't want to, you feel like you're going into a world where you don't want to embarrass yourself just yet, you know, talking in front of 5 viewers. But, you know, there's no embarrassing start to this. And then I started getting the face out there and started posting some of my my day in the life at Lords. And so I built up a decent following on there, but it's only the start. And looking to go a lot further, Taran. Maybe I can surpass your YouTube following.
I don't know about that because I think you're probably already past it. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Charlie's stuff, really interesting. Firstly, good depth of knowledge on sort of county cricket and that sort of stuff. Funny videos. And then also, I mean, you spoke briefly about it, but the Lords membership. How did that come about? How do you get a Lords membership? I'm sure loads of listeners, if they're listening, would be wondering, you know, that's what I want to do for my whole life. How do you get that?
No. So I'm a playing member, which means that you can essentially take 2 years to play 10 games for the MCC. You kind of got to show them your stats, show them who you are, show them that you're a decent player. And then you can, essentially, they'll let you play as a candidate as 10 trial games. And if you perform well enough, basically, if you're a batter, if you get 100, and at the end of the day, you just got to be a good bloke, because that's what the MCC is all about, isn't it? Play with the spirit of cricket. If you get a thin edge, you got to walk straight away. You can't even look for the umpire's decision. You know, maybe even walk on LBW if it's that plumb. No, you got to be a good bloke. That's the main thing. And I was lucky enough, actually, as a batter myself. I went into my last game needing 100. And it was
Pressure.
a 3 hours trip up to Canterbury. And I think I got 103 not out in front of all the family, which is one of my go-to stories. But no, it was absolute pleasure to finally get in. And I'm now in my second year of being a member. But I'm in a kind of limbo stage where you've got to play for 5 years. You got to play 20 games in 5 just to kind of solidify your one, good blokeness, and 2, that you still can give it a good whack around with the bat or ball, whatever you choose to do. So now I'm in my second year, as I said, going to Lords whenever I like, no matter what the game is.
Get the tie in the bag and just rock up whenever you want.
Exactly. You know, I've got all the gear. I've got the socks, I've got the ties, I've got the cufflinks, you name it, I'll get it.
So what's your favourite bit of Lords member gear then?
Favourite bit of Lords member gear? Well, it's actually something I don't have yet, which is the cool box. A few of my mates might give me a bit of chat for doing a food related bit of gear, but it's actually the cool box looks absolutely flames, Taran. I'd love to get myself an MCC cool box, absolutely. And then it's just the tie. You can't look past the tie, can you?
Definitely the tie's a good one, but I think the cool box, that's very village, you know, having the cool box on the side. I think now you're at the standard where you're going to be, you know, cool box in the changing room. Is it as good as the cool box on the side with the Lords logo on? I don't know.
I wasn't planning on taking it to my own games, Taran. I was more planning on taking it to Lords.
Fair enough, okay.
I wasn't going to put my spikes in the cool bag, I'll be honest.
If you want a quick drink when you're watching the match.
No, of course. No, it's a good idea, Taran. It's a good idea.
Definitely.
It's more for just bagsying my seats, getting there at 5 a.m. in the morning or something at Lords, you know, on day one of the Ashes. That's more what the cool box is for, really. You just go in and put your bag on a seat and you got that seat for the rest of the day. But no.
That's perfect.
Absolutely beautiful bit of gear. You should go and check it out. Trust me. It's better than it sounds.
Charlie, I'll have to ask you to get me a spare one next time.
No, it's not part of the membership, Taran. You'll have to get your own membership.
Yeah, I'll have to become a good player and then I can finally get it.
You are a good player, Taran. You are a good player,
cheers.
I'm sure.
Right, so that last game where you needed the 100, was that the closest you think you've ever felt to what a real cricketer goes through, you know, when it's the plays on the line and I need to perform today? What was the mental tricks that you pulled? Were you going like newspaper readings, like the players have said this about me, they don't believe me?
Yeah, I had a few really rough games in the run up to it. Actually, one of the other just before I go on to how I felt on the day, one of the games in the run up to it, this member was batting at 3 and I was opening. He came out to bat with me. I think he'd come down from Scotland to Portsmouth on about don't know how long it must have taken him, a huge amount of time from the top to the bottom of the United Kingdom. If anyone doesn't know much about English geography, but so I accidentally ended up running him out on about one, and this guy's a member. And whether it was my fault or not, I felt like I was in huge trouble because this poor lad had come all the way down from Scotland. And no, that was a tough day. But I bought him a beer, showed the MCC that I'm a good guy. This is what I do. I might not be able to get your runs because I think I got out 3 balls later and had to go and sit next to him in the changing room. But no, that was a tough day. Anyway, back to how I felt the day. So that was all building up, all the emotions, all the past games I'd had for the MCC. But then all the family came to watch, and I think, to be honest, I play my best cricket, Taran, when I can put all that aside and go out and enjoy it. Because the main thing for me with cricket, because I'm not a professional, it's all about going out there to have fun. I wouldn't play cricket if I wasn't going out there to have fun, and that's when I've batted my best and got a retired 100. It doesn't matter who it's against, who it's for. 100s always feel good. But that was as close as I've ever felt to being a professional cricketer. 100%.
Did you give it the full Virat Kohli, send off when you got there,
No.
swearing to the crowd?
No, Taran. You've got to be a good guy. You can't go doing the David Warner headbutt when you're celebrating the 100. Yeah, exactly. Just take your helmet off. Just a little kind of respect to everyone who's around you. And then I retired myself because that's just
good
how...
bloke. Good bloke.
Exactly. It's just what you got to be. It's what you got to do, Taran, to be in the MCC. But no, it's a pleasure to be part of such a great club, and I don't take it for granted the fact that I can go in the pavilion as a man in my early 20s, and also bring friends in as well. That's one of the main things that I love about Lords, being able to go not just on your own to a Middlesex game in early April, which, don't get me wrong,
has its place. It has its place in the calendar. It has its place in the calendar.
It absolutely does. But no, taking your games, taking your friends to T20 Blast games or games in the evening, a lovely experience. But I'm not sure all my mates are really cut out for the 4-day stuff, especially when you're not going to all 4 days.
Yeah, you need to get the full Lords experience. You get there, nice lunch, have a few drinks, and experience the whole day and all 4 days. So I assume you'll be at all 4 days of the England-India match? Well,
to be honest, I'll be at Saturday and Sunday, which I think is day 3 and day 4. However, I'll be working on Thursday and Friday, unfortunately. That's a seriously tough day to be working, especially with two great teams going head-to-head at a place we all love.
No, definitely, for sure. So I think maybe we can move on. It was great hearing about Lords, but the World Test Championship final, which was also at Lords, what did you make of that competition, that spectacle between two great teams?
I think it's huge, Taran. I think the tournament as a whole, I feel like it's just kicking into gear. We've had 3 rotations of it now, and this was the first final I felt genuine kind of movement behind. This final, everyone was going ballistic in the crowds. We had a huge South African following at Lords, and I think, as you said, it was just such a spectacle. And it really highlights what makes Test cricket so incredible. And it feels like we've had a few years running up to the beginnings of this tournament, where Test cricket had its place. However, there was nothing on the line other than to try and win a series. And what this World Test Championship brings is all the energy and what Test cricket deserves. It deserves importance on every single delivery. Every single day needs importance in the grand scheme of things. And before the World Test Championship, we didn't have that. But what a better place to have it at Lords. Come on now. Should we go back to talking about Lords?
Yeah, let's go back to... No, you say that, but actually Lords and watching cricket, so I've watched cricket in India and England. I think there's just no better experience than watching it in England. I've not been to Australia. Watching cricket, I've been to Lords. Just the atmosphere, everything around it, all the food, all the drinks. It's just unbelievable. And I think that actually contributed a lot to the final. So I guess, what do you think do you think England should host the World Test Championship every year? Because I know there was some talk of India wanting to do it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Taran. And I think with the makeup of the ICC being incredibly Indian. You wouldn't have put it past them to put it all in India, would you? But I think there was an interesting point I heard the other day, which was the fact that it's in England brings such a diverse range of fans that whoever's playing, there's going to be a grand following on either side. And I think that's maybe something you don't necessarily get in India or in Australia, is that wide range of fans from different countries, different nations, that whoever's coming to play on that final, you're going to get a great reception. Everyone in England just loves Test cricket. It has that place above the other formats. And I feel you get that maybe in Australia as well. However, not many areas across the world is Test cricket still that absolute pinnacle. And it's absolutely the top of the game in English cricket for everyone watching. No one really worries too much about the IPL. Everyone just wants to be at day one for Lords, don't they?
Yeah, I think that's definitely I echo that. So, obviously I follow Indian cricket a lot, but the IPL, it has its place. It's a good tournament, lots of great cricket, but day one Lords, day one Oval, day one sort of Leeds on Friday, that's sort of the day where everything really is on the line. And this is going to be the sort of true test of a team versus each other. So yeah, I think you're completely right with that point in my eyes.
Yeah,
Lords,
but it's interesting. I think
still is the biggest draw for most players, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think this is again coming back to what's so great about the World Test Championship is what everyone in England sees about Test cricket is kind of amplified for us, but also amplified for everyone else around the world in terms of we know exactly why Test cricket's good. We know what, there's a lot of people still following 4-day cricket and county championship. You feel like you don't get that anywhere else in the world, Even though the following is reducing on county championship, don't get me wrong, it's still higher than a lot of other places in the world. They're probably greater than the Sheffield Shield and the Ranji Trophy as well, unless Virat Kohli's playing. That's for sure.
No. I think the advent of the streams as well has been really positive for county cricket because you can sort of go on, watch a game, you see the players, and some county players which are potential England call-ups. You see that they're playing at the Oval. See they're playing at Lords. You might make a trip down for an evening if they're batting well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think county championship's doing a lot of right things. However, it still feels like there's a long way to go in that being a genuinely good moneymaker, And the problem we have at the minute for Test cricket lovers and long format lovers is that's not where the money is it? The money is in India, is with the T20 stuff, And actually we need to find a way in county cricket to make this a more fundable exercise, Because it's not that at the minute. Despite there being a good following in England, we're still not making enough money to keep these counties afloat on just 4-day cricket, which is how it used to be at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So how do you think we can change that? Or how do you think counties can change that? Or what are the, spitballing some ideas? What do you think we can do?
Ran. What a question that has puzzled so many for the last 30, 40 years, and you're lumping it on me now, Turan.
Well, we can move on. No,
let me just solve world cricket right now. Turan, I can't give you an answer, unfortunately. No. I feel anything I'd say would make people laugh.
No,
but I think one thing to point out with Turan is, having been to some county championship games this year, is the number of young cricketers, really young cricketers, that are going to watch this and enjoying their days is so far more than I realised, than I expected. And actually, the fact that is a possibility shows that there's signs for growth. These young kids are going, enjoying their days watching the county championship. That's an old man's game, and young kids are going out and enjoying themselves. So the future is there, and I think it's just important to really, with the World Test Championship, heighten the importance of the long format. It's the pinnacle, and that's what the World Test Championship's doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think as well, we're seeing Zimbabwe came. Maybe if other teams can come, islands, understand to play more Test cricket and just develop that love, more players go to watch it. You have a better standard of cricket. And also, if you can replicate what you do in England in other countries, so in India and in Australia, then who knows? The game of Test cricket could grow. But I think we've almost solved Test cricket and county championship cricket there. But I'll move on, given there's a huge series starting on Friday. How do you think the series will go? Are you worried about England's chances?
There's a lot of factors, Turan. What I'm worried about is England have become, over the last few years, they've become flat track bullies. And another nation who bat well on flat decks is India. And the one thing we've had over them for the last, well, for since the beginning of time in cricket is our conditions. And the one thing that troubles me is if we are confidently going to push out this Bazball aura of Stokes and Brooke and Root playing whatever shot they fancy, whatever pops into their brain. They need these flat wickets to make this work. And it was shown by the wicket at Trent Bridge. Yes, Trent Bridge is notably a pitch that's pretty good for batting this year. But the fact that, you know, there's over 1,000 runs in the test match and Zimbabwe were knocking up 250 pretty easily. And I worry that if we put these wickets out against India, Jaiswal, Rahul, Shubman Gill are not going to have those troubles. It's an inexperienced Indian side, you know? And actually, that worries me as an England fan, that against an inexperienced India side, who notably in the past struggle in these English conditions, we are serving them up, rolling them out flat wickets to say, we'll beat you on these decks. I worry about that.
Yeah, I just think it's a bizarre tactic because Shubman Gill, he's got a terrible record overseas. Jaiswal hasn't played any cricket in England, and you're going to give them tracks that they know that they can get a score on. And then I think on the flip side of that, you've got Jasprit Bumrah, and he doesn't need a pitch to get wickets. He can get anyone out. So you conflate those two things and you think England must have a lot of trust in Bazball and their approach to be able to win the series like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point you make about Jasprit, where he'd get a 10 for on glass, this bloke, and he'd make people turn into S's. You know, he is so good. And the counter to that, Taran, is if we roll him out a green deck, he will just keep taking wickets, you know? And actually, maybe, are we looking at this Indian side and thinking, okay, where are their strong points? Admittedly, their only real strong point at the minute, after Jaiswal and Rahul, is Bumrah. And if maybe they're thinking, if we serve out green wickets, Bumrah will skittle us. Because let's be honest, he will. He will make mincemeat of Crawley and Pope, because we know Pope in those first 30 balls will look scratchy. So I think I worry whatever the wicket for Bumrah. You make a great point there.
That makes sense. Speaking of Pope, are you thinking that Pope should play, or are you team Bethel?
God, Taran, you're really chucking out the great questions today. For me, Pope. If Bethel made himself available for that Zimbabwe test instead of playing IPL, I would have been more interested. However, as an England cricket fan, there is this battle against the selectors' loyalty and the fans' naivety and love to play new young players who love to get a 90. But I think you can't get away from the fact that Jacob Bethel has not scored a professional 100, and you're rolling him out to bat at 3 against India. I think Ollie Pope's their man. He's been their man for maybe too long, but you can't deny he got 170 against Zimbabwe, 171. You know, arguments are going to say it's Zimbabwe. However, I think he was under a lot of pressure and he performed. And Ollie Pope was their man, was going to be their man, whether I think he got a low score or not. And he is now well and truly their man. But Bethel's a great backup batter. You cannot deny that, can you?
Yeah, I think there's even a case for me. But I think when you watch Bethel play, you can just tell he's an absolute gun player. You know, I didn't expect him to come to New Zealand and bat as well as he did. He just looked so organised. He looked like he played. It was a bit like watching Joe Root. I don't even remember his first ever Test match. I think it was Ahmedabad or something. Nagpur, where he just came in, hit a 70 odd, and just looked $1 million from day one. So maybe you can get him in, but it's England have backed themselves in the corner because they like to back their man in Ollie Pope, but also they want to back the youth, so it's kind of Ben Stokes, stick or twist.
I know, and I think it's so much of this is with the Ashes in the horizon, and I think, as you say, England are so set on an 11, and especially with a top 6 or 7, you've got to have full confidence in them, and you've got to show that. Like Stokes has shown that. He's showing that with Bashir as well. And one of the great strengths about this side is they are showing that undying loyalty in the players, and they know that. You know, Zach Crawley knows that he's backed. He knows that he can get 3 ducks in a row, and there'll be no pressure on him. And they've kind of created that wall with the media, whatever they say, because Stokes is so passionate about this loyalty, and Brendan McCullum is so passionate about, if you've done it before, you know, you can do it again. You know, Zach Crawley's in arguably his prime years, and whatever he goes out and gets, they're going to back him to come back the next day and get 180 against Australia. you know?
Yeah, I think Crawley's an interesting one because, if you look at Crawley, Test record mirrors his first class record, which isn't great. And you feel like the selectors and Bazball and Baz and Brendan especially, they sort of just say, well, he might win us one test. He might win us one test in 10 and we're happy with that. And it's crazy logic, but I mean, are you sort of getting tired of Crawley, averaging 30 and scoring 110, 20, 30 innings?
I mean, it's a good 100, isn't it? That
I mean,
one.
that Australia 100 was one of the best I've seen. He just absolutely flayed everything.
I know. And I think he also just epitomises Bazball at the top of the order, Obviously, Ben Duckett goes at an extreme rate, but that cover drive, first ball, the 23 Ashes,
it was special.
was just, this is Bazball. They absolutely loved that as a coach and captain, didn't they? And I think, does it frustrate me? It does frustrate me at times. How can Zak Crawley he went the whole winter averaging 11 or something, and you can't not be frustrated with that as an England fan. However, it's got to a point now where the England selectors are so loyal. I almost don't see another way. I talked a lot about Ben McKinney and various other openers. I think Emilio Gay's been playing very well for Durham and for England Lions over the last couple of weeks. And although they are in with a shout, I don't think at any point they are going to change their thoughts. Just because Zak Crawley, as we've seen, he's got that ability. That's what they look at as selectors. Have you got the ability to go and get hundreds? If you do, we'll back you to do it regularly. The fact that Crawley hasn't done it that regularly is not really part of their worries. I think the fact that he's shown it means that there's no other man these selectors want to back just because he can be that good.
Yeah, and I think also they select a lot with an eye on Australia. And if you look at Crawley's technique, very good against the bouncing ball. His sort of weakness is the one that sort of nips in or nips away on a little dibbly dobbler. You're not going to get that in Australia. So they're probably saying, we're going to tolerate him 10 failures here. And if he scores a couple of hundred in Australia, then we've done our job. But you're taking a big risk as a selector if you do that. And, that's the risk of Bazball at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you raised there, because there is this idea that Zak Crawley does well in Australia. I think he's played like 2 or 3 tests when he came in for Rory Burns in 21-22. And as you say, his technique, you're absolutely right. His technique's so well suited. He's so tall. He'll get on top of the bounce, and you have to change your length when you're playing to Zak Crawley, because a good to short length ball becomes a half volley. But I think the interesting thing about Zak Crawley in Australia is there is this idea that Australia are hard at pitches, which doesn't provide much for the fast bowler. However, we've seen in the last couple of years, especially in the Border Gavaskar Trophy, you got Scott Boland who's bowling low 80s, going at an average of about 15, 13, I think he went at an average in his last 3 tests, not to mention Jasprit Bumrah going at 12. And so I think there, especially in Sydney, there's really been a development of these Australian pitches being quite nippy and quite good for the fast bowler. And I think that really could actually bite Zak Crawley after we've bigged him up for so many years.
Yeah, no, I agree on the pitches. I mean, I was watching the Border Gavaskar Trophy and it was such like a difference to, I remember watching sort of 2014 series where, typical yellow Australian flat pitches, lots of runs, and really the hit the deck bowlers in Cummins and Hazelwood got the purchase. This series, all the tracks had a little bit of something in them. And it's something where, think Chris Woakes, bring me in, because if you're going to be playing on those sorts of pitches, I know he doesn't have a great record abroad, but on those pitches, I think, even Chris Woakes could do a job. So it's definitely interesting how the pitches have developed. And I think I actually listened to a very good article on this and said the weather's done a lot of that because it's much wetter in Australia these days, especially in the summer. So that's why you're sort of getting these pitches, and England's a lot drier, so now the pitches are a lot flatter. But yeah, certainly something to think about Zak Crawley. If you're a betting man, would you think that he's going to be in the starting 11 for Australia?
Is Zak Crawley in the starting 11?
Yeah.
If I'm betting man, I'm lumping about my whole life savings on that. I'll be honest.
You don't think there's any chance where he has a bad series?
No chance. Zak Crawley is playing first test, day 1, 100%, unless he's injured, which an English fan might do if he gets 10 low scores in a row this series. But I honestly think there is zero chance. If I was to put my money on something, I'd probably say England won't change their top 7 from now until the first test in Australia. I mean, Pope and Bethel's that that only change. Maybe if Smith doesn't play too well, potentially, you know, Pope could take the gloves back lower down the order, Stokes move to 7 and Bettel up to 3. But I honestly don't think they're moving anywhere with that top 7. And for me, Turan, the main issue comes with England's bowlers, because England's fast bowling lineup it lacks potency. It lacks energy, it lacks pace. Maybe Wokes is the first person who's actually come in and I've thought, yeah, I could get behind this. Whereas Potts hasn't got into his mojo. Josh Tongue is a good bowler in county cricket, but I'm still yet to see it on the international stage. Yeah, he did. I think he did pretty well against Ireland at Lords in 23.
Bit of tap in the A game as well. I watched that versus Kara Hall and Jaiswal. You know, Wokes bowled excellently that game, and Tongue, you know, he looked far off it. And I was sitting there as an India fan and saying, you know, if you've got Tongue, Cass, Overton, do I back?
Yeah.
And then also you got Bashir to back that up. Can I see a world where you get at Tongue, you get at Overton, you keep Wokes a bit, Wokes goes at 2s, and then you go for Bashir, pan on Bashir. And then you're looking at long days, especially on flat pitches. That's obviously a best case scenario. But is that something you worry about with this bowling lineup, or is there any circumstance where you think that this bowling lineup, especially with the injuries that England have got, can pull something out the bag?
I'm seriously worried. It's the main. I'm not worried about England's batters. You know, Pope, Bethel, we can argue all day about that. However, that's not going to win us a test match, those two, I don't think. And you know, the old saying is bowlers win your games. You know, bowlers can just make the huge difference. And when you've got I think they really are trying to develop Sam Cook, because they've seen him bowl well against Australia A in Australia. I think he was going at like 1.5 for a few of those games out there. He's a very kind of Scott Bolden-like bowler who could maybe do well out there. But I really worry, as you say, without Mark Wood, without Jofra Archer, yes, they're coming back, but if they're not on it for the Ashes, we are going to get pumped. However, you know, old or outdated these Australian batters are, or scratchy Labuschagne looks, Labuschagne will get a triple ton against some of these guys, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not disrespecting them as cricketers, because they are all good cricketers, but it feels like at the minute, Bryden Castle is our number one bowler.
Yeah, it's a long way off from the Anderson and Broad days, you know, coming into a series and having, you know, 2 bankers, or at least 1 banker in Anderson. You could build a lineup around that. You just need Wokes to chip in a few games. Broadie's going to keep it consistent, and then you can have one, you know, a Jofra, a Mark Wood, and that's a very good seam attack. Whereas now you're sort of saying Sam Cook, 75 miles an hour. Is that what we need?
Yeah, there was also an interesting stat about Sam Cook, which is one of the main things England didn't like about Ollie Robinson was how his pace deteriorated throughout the day. You know, sometimes dropping like 10 miles an hour of pace throughout the day. And it's not because he, you know, took up off spin in the final few overs, but it's because of his fitness. And there was a great article on the Telegraph, I think, which was saying that Sam Cook lost his pace from about 81 to about 72 by the end of the day. And you're looking at that and you're thinking, for Australia, where it's going to be harsher conditions, can you back this guy to bowl out for the whole test match and be consistent throughout the whole test? But he's shown it for Essex, so I think you just got to keep faith in this guy until he shows you otherwise.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Sam Cook, because, you know, is that the bowler you need? Can he improve? And you've seen someone like Ben Code for Yorkshire. He's been doing that for years, just bowling 70 mile an hour, 80 mile an hour, and keeping it tight. Maybe doesn't have the wickets. I don't know what the Essex wickets are like, but is Sam Cook that much better than a county bowler? The average, you know, in a test match, I'm yet to be convinced.
I get you. I mean, he is clearly out of this world in the county stuff. You've said that. But the issue is transferring it into the test game. And I think transferring it into the test game on these flat English wickets that provide very little for him. And he's known for this kind of metronomic, great areas bowling. However, yes, it was his first test. We've got to give him that. He really did throw it around a bit, didn't he, in that first test? But I'd just like to quickly, whilst we're on it, talk about Jamie Overton.
The best 97. The best 97 you'll ever see.
Man, I mean, this guy, I'll be honest, I haven't thrown him hate, I'll be honest. But I haven't been the biggest advocate for his selection. And it's not because he's a bad cricketer, but I felt like they were trying to force him into this all-rounder role to replace kind of Stokes in that prime ODI team. And his batting just never kind of met up to all our expectations of what he could do. Yes, he got a 97 red or whatever. He did get out in the end, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, but I think the thing for me about Jamie Overton is he's an entire Ashes pick. This guy he's not been picked on his first class record. The guy averages I think he averages over 31 in red ball cricket in first class.
Especially in county championship on some of the wickets you get there, maybe in previous years. Obviously now it's very flat, but.
Yeah, I know, but I worry because yes, he can bowl a decent pace. Yes, he's very, very tall, but it just feels like a Chris Tremlett pick. You know, it feels like a Stephen Finn pick. Yeah, I don't think he'll do well against India. But maybe come Australia, could he show us something? But I wasn't an advocate for him in the white ball side, and seeing this pick in the red ball side just has thrown me off completely.
Yes, especially with Overton. I think England thought they had this huge battery of fast bowlers, and suddenly you realise that, you know, when you take the top one or two in Mark Wood and Jofra Archer, you've got quick bowlers, but none of them are getting to 95. Overton's 87, 91, 92 on a good day. But you haven't got that express pace, and it's just the talent and depth of any team. You're never going to have 8 great fast bowlers unless you get really lucky. So they've been hamstrung by that. So I think they've had to go with Overton because who else is there? And I guess you watch a lot of county cricket. Is there anyone that you're looking at saying he should be in over Overton or Tongue or all these guys?
I think the only man, yes, he's in the squad. However, the only man who really takes my eye, and a man I want to see a lot more in the test team, is Matt Potts. Because similar to Bryden Carse, he'll do everything for the badge. You know, he's going to keep working away all day. He's shown it for Durham. He is absolute workhorse for Durham. Whether he's playing for England in a couple of days' time, he'll do anything to go up and play for Durham. And I think what I love about Potts is he kind of brings a little bit of everyone. You know, Bryden Carse is that workhorse. Gus Atkinson could take you a few wickets on a good day. But Matt Potts, for me, just kind of brings them all together in this kind of decent pace, good areas, hard length, not easy to get away kind of bowler. And he for me, could be probably the first name on that bowler's team sheet, alongside maybe Sam Cook and a Bryden Carse.
Yeah, I mean, when he first came to the team, I wasn't really sure what Matt Potts did. But I think I remember seeing him bowl against India in 21. And I was pleasantly surprised because he kept it 80, I think got to mid-80s, bowled in a great length, nibbled it in, nibbled it away. And much like Broad sometimes went through spells where you thought, how has this guy got 600 test wickets? With Anderson, for me, it was always clear that, you know, this guy is magic, absolute gun. With Brody, it was sometimes, how's this guy got 600 test wickets? And then occasionally you'd sort of say, oh, that's why, because he can do certain things. He can get good batsmen out, and, you know, it's one of those.
Yeah, another thing about Matt Potts is I watched him bowl Hampshire versus Durham. I was doing some commentary on that game, and I saw him bowl at a few of the Hampshire guys, and he looked quick. He clearly had a couple of, like Cody Youssef for Durham's also a quick bowler, but Matt Potts he looked a lot faster than these guys. And I think another thing, I saw him in the Lord's long room last year, and he's a strong lad. People who've talked to him and know him well talk about he's big. This guy's thighs are the size of my head. They're absolutely huge. And, you know, I could hear him coming when he came down the steps with the long room. No, Matt Potts is a genuinely class cricketer, and I think he deserves more of a shout than he gets. I feel he's much lesser rated by the selectors than I think he is by the fan base, which is quite a common theme in this English selection, isn't it? No, Matt Potts is definitely my man.
Yeah, you're always a better player out of the team than you are in it. And we can say another one of my favourite quotes is, he bowls a heavy ball. He bowls a heavy ball. You love when a commentator, Nasser Hussein's the king of that. He bowls a really heavy ball. You just know.
Some of the great analysis. You can't measure it, can you? You just know.
Yeah, you can't measure it. It's just, no. Someone told me once that his bowl's a heavy ball, so I'm just going to say it on commentary a million times.
Yeah. One of those great quotes that no one actually knows what they mean.
Yeah.
But it's just heavy. You know, it's not fast. You know, he's not bowling a great length. It's just the ball feels heavier when Matt Potts is bowling. It makes no sense, does it? But just before we move on from the bowlers, Turan, I'd love to know from an Indian perspective how do the Indian players feel about going out to bat against Bashir?
I think Bashir is an interesting one because he bowls well under Stokes. It's clear. He even says it himself that he becomes sort of a new man when he walks into that England dressing room. It's just I think he can bowl good balls, but he's not someone who I think is going to cause batsmen to have sleepless nights like a Shane Warne. But I think you can get good players out with good balls. But again, it's just how tight you can keep it. We saw even in India on helpful pitches, he went around a bit. Yes, he bowled good balls, but on a flat pitch, Rishabh Pant, I think you could worry slightly with that.
Yeah, putting Bashir and Shane Warne in the same sentence just made me quiver just for a moment. But you used the great name in the right way. I think Bashir's average under Stokes is 32, and his average under Pope, I think he's bowled in 8 innings under Pope, and he's gone at 64 runs per wicket. And you're absolutely right in terms of it's the mentality Stokes gives Bashir. Not only is it kind of that unending loyalty, however, the fields they set, they're aggressive and allow Bashir to just bowl with freedom. And not many captains give that to a young spinner to go out there on the biggest stage. How often do you see it in county cricket? You know, Farhan Ahmed's obviously this ridiculous talent for Notts, but it's so rare you see a captain put aggressive fields out for young off spinners, like maybe for a leggy, but a young off spinner who's not necessarily known for giving it an almighty rag. But, you know, this guy, he's nothing special, and Stokes has sent him in to just go and absolutely take wickets. And I think it's that confidence he gives him which just sets Bashir apart. It's mainly Stokes, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's confidence. I do think Bashir, he's got the attributes. Like he does spin it hard. He gets good drift. You can see him. He does not outthink batters, but he outplays them because he can get that ball to dip on them. And you see lots of batters sort of reach for the ball when they play Bashir. But it's just consistency. Yeah. I think he doesn't have that consistency. He's not 21 years old. He hasn't played a lot of first class cricket. He's not, unless you're a prodigy, you can't really expect that.
Yeah. I mean, the poor lad's third choice at Somerset. I mean, Archie Vaughan is probably getting picked over him as a spinner. I know Archie Vaughan's got the batting with him, but Jack Leach is being out of the side gets to me.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Jack Leach. Right. I think he was a very good bowler for England, bowled well, did a job, and he's probably what you need in this team. Unless you have someone who's going to be a Kuldeep Yadav who can bowl magic deliveries all the time, then someone like Jack Leach is perfect just to hold an end, let the seamers rotate.
Left arm as well. You know, you're spinning away from the right-handed batter. You know, it's almost a match made in heaven. But I think it's almost they're looking too far in advance. You know, if Bashir starts bowling well 5 years down the line, I won't look back on this period and think, God, I'm really pleased we backed him for 5 years when we had Jack Leach in his prime. You know, I think he's 35, 36. The guy wants to play 4 or 5 years more professional cricket at the top level, and I think he will. Jack Leach. He'll be an absolute stalwart for Somerset for the next 4 years at least. But I think you're right. Bashir provides height. He tries to spin the ball a lot, and he gets a lot of overspin, as you say. He gets a lot of dip. But it's just going to be a few years till we see him being genuinely threatening as an off spinner.
Yeah, and I think with England as well, there's so much talent. You spoke about Farhan Ahmed. How long? Is it going to be a year, and then it's Farhan Ahmed is going to be the guy who is the bowler that England need? You've got to weigh that into account, because then you think, Leach is probably a better pick now if you know that Farhan Ahmed's going to come in.
Yeah.
Like you said before, also, it's the Australia pick. They think Bashir is Lion-esque, and they think he'll do well in Australia, even though he got a bit of tap on was it the 8 tour? I think he went at 8s.
Yeah.
I think he was going at 8s.
He got serious tap to Ran. Not just tap, he got absolutely walloped around. But, you argue this is a great learning experience, maybe. But you're absolutely right with Farhan Ahmed. If we back Bashir for 3 years saying, God, he's going to be good. And then Farhan Ahmed's just ridiculous in county stuff. You can't then just say, all right, Bashir, make way. You're absolutely right. Maybe Leach should be our bowler for the next few years and let Bashir get some county championship experience under his belt and bowl in the same league as Farhan Ahmed. You can really compare them and then make your pick a couple of years down the line. Maybe Test cricket is not the place to learn your craft.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to, England's picking on potential again. Where does it stop? I think they've come unstuck with Bethel and Pope now because they've backed Pope to the hill, like you said, and now Bethel's come along. If another situation like that happens, you kind of got to stick or twist, and you're making problems for yourself. It is. It's difficult for selectors.
Yeah. Taran, I don't know. I don't know how much time we've got left,
Yeah.
but I'd love to hear your thoughts on India's batters, because I'm not a man who's particularly well versed in Indian cricket, and I'd love to know, even if it's Jaiswal, because it's what we've seen in Test cricket. I'd love to know the key batters and who else you think could play a role.
Yeah, so I think so obviously you've got Jaiswal, you've got Shubman Gill. I think one player who I think slated to come in at 6 by all reports is Karen Nair. And he's someone he scored 500s in 7 ODI games to get his team to a final, scored 100 in the Ranji final, scored a double 100 in the warm-up game, double 100 for Northamptonshire last year, triple 100 in Test cricket. There was one point where he was looking like he was going to retire from cricket altogether, and he posted on Twitter saying, just give me another chance. And now he's back. So he's someone who I think could have a real bumper series just because of the experience he has. And I think he's really important to the lineup, because having someone at 6 who is not just a dasher like a Sarfaraz Khan would be, but who can build an innings is really important. And then I think at number 3, you're going to have Sai Sudarshan as well. He's very highly rated by Alex Stewart. So he's played for Surrey for a couple of years. Alex Stewart, I think from all accounts, thinks he's a brilliant prospect. So I'm really intrigued to see how he goes, because I think he could have a really good series, especially if the wickets are flatter than usual. So I think that's my sort of lowdown on the Indian batters and who you should be wary of.
No, I'm really pleased you said Sai Sudarshan, because he's a man, because I haven't been paying too much attention to the IPL. He's a man that has gone under my radar, and I'd love to see this guy back. I haven't seen him yet. I think he didn't he get maybe the highest run score in the IPL or something.
Yeah,
I feel like he
had a pretty gun IPL this season.
Yeah, and I think he averages about 67 in his 3 ODIs he's played for India.
Yeah, the only thing with Sai Sudarshan is a bit like Zach Crawley. He's got like a first-class average of 38, 39, which is really crazy when you think about how good he looks when you see him. But it could be another one of those circumstances. But he has played some county cricket, so that lowers the average slightly. But yeah, it would be definitely interesting to see how he goes.
But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see if Rishabh Pant and Shubman Gill, these experienced Indian cricketers, I think it'll be really interesting to see if they have a good role. And I think it brings us back to that point about English conditions being slightly flatter wickets. These guys who in the past, I mean, KR Rahul's done pretty well, but we know Shubman Gill, as you said, is not great overseas. And Rishabh Pant, yes, he's had a couple of good knocks in England. However, this could really be an important series for them to kind of really stamp their mark as India's new famous Kohli-like cricketers. You know, there's a gap that needs to be filled. Shubman Gill's just been sponsored by MRF.
Yeah, they call him the Prince. So you got King Kohli and you got Prince Shubman. But yeah, I think it's a huge series. Actually, talking about Shubman Gill, it's a massive series for him, because he's been anointed as the next Virat Kohli. He's the guy that India are putting their hopes on. And he's had a pretty middling start to his career. He's not been unbelievable. He's done really well at home, but away from home, he just hasn't scored the runs. And he's one of those players where you look at his technique and there's definite flaws there. He sort of stays leg side, but much like, Ollie Pope or Harry Brook, I'd say he's very talented. He can smash the ball anywhere. Anything short of a length, he's unbelievable at that sort of short arm jab pull shot. So he's got all the shots. It's just about marrying that with the technique to have a solid enough game to have enough time to play those shots. So it's definitely one of those things. But
yeah, absolutely.
Out of the Indian batters, I guess, who do you think is the one to replace the Kohli Gill, the Kohli Rohit void?
You can't look past Jaiswal, can you? I mean, the series he had in Australia was absolutely ridiculous. I think he only got a few good scores, but they were really, really good scores. I mean, the guy in Test cricket averages, I think, 53 in the 19 matches he's played. And he obviously got that not out double 100 against England in India. So he's clearly got a great record playing against our boys. But it'll be interesting to see how he plays in English conditions. But, I mean, going back to Shubman Gill, I think I had a look at his stats and he averages 14.
Yeah, it's not great abroad. It's not great.
In England, he's only had 3 tests, poor Shubman. But he averages over 40 in the subcontinent, but has seriously struggled in his 3 tests in England. And with such a big void to fill, Shubman Gill, I can see him struggling. Unless you never know with these guys. Sometimes they can just really be the big game players. And if he goes out and gets 100 in the first test, Shubman Gill, they'll be past Kohli. They'll be on to Shubman Gill, won't they? But the same with Joe as well, I think.
I think it's interesting that he's captain now, because captaining against any side is difficult, especially as a batsman. But captaining when you've got everyone, Brooke, Root, Pope coming in hard at you, it's going to be difficult for them to face that as a captain. So how do you think he should deal with it? What's the best way you've seen to deal with Bazball as a captain?
So the best way I've seen it dealt with in England feels a bit silly to say, but it's Australia. Cummins, I think, with the first team, because Bazball just tore it up 2022. Going into 2023, it looked like we were just going to roll through Australia. Pat Cummins was going to get all flustered, which is kind of what you're hinting at with Shubman Gill. But I think what Pat Cummins did really well was dried up the boundaries. He wasn't afraid to put out a sweeper really early doors in a test match. And you look at it and you think, well, that's just so negative. Why are you putting out a deep point on over 3 of the first day of the test match? And the thing is, he knew that if you dry up the boundaries of this England side, especially with Ben Duckett, who loves to go at about 170 in the county championship or something ridiculous, when you deprive these guys of boundaries, they try and find other ways of scoring boundaries. They can't just go along at getting 1s and 2s every other ball. These guys need to hit boundaries and they'll get themselves out. And actually the way you play Bazball, especially with the field, is you have a real mixture of aggression in your field sets, as you do in any early test match, and defence. You don't try and find that limbo, because every captain who's tried to find that has got it wrong. And Pat Cummins did a brilliant job at defending the areas, because Duckett, let's take Duckett for an example. He plays everything square of the wicket.
Yeah.
If he hits you down the ground, fair play, we'll give him that. But if you chuck out a sweeper on one side, maybe both sides, you dry him up of 70% of his runs. And that guy can't just go on along scoring 1s every other ball. So defend and attack is what I say.
Yeah, because you got to make, if they hit to other areas, they're gonna be less good at that, because they're not as trained, or they haven't done as much practice as hitting to other areas. They have their favourite areas. So definitely agree that's a good approach to counter Bazball. But I guess going on to some of these great innings, from your history or your memory, what has been the great innings that you've seen India versus England? Which ones stand out to you the most?
You are seriously testing my knowledge now. What's a great England-India innings? I can't really look past Alistair Cook's goodbye.
Yeah, that was a the whole of the Oval. Was it the Oval packed out? Alistair Cook ran out. Was he run out on 70 in the first innings, or he
got like a 67 or something, and then in the second innings he got to his 100 on overthrows.
Yeah, that was very Alistair Cook. Very Alistair Cook.
He got to 100 with a 6 of overthrows, which is as Alistair Cook as it gets. But yeah, I honestly can't look past that as an innings for me. Just as an English supporter, not because of what it meant for the game. We did win that series, but Alistair Cook going out like that is England India in its prime for me. What about you? Have you got an Indian score or English score in your head?
You know what stands out for me, because it was probably the first series I properly watched, India England. I think Sachin made like a 90. It was when he was about to get his 100, and he was on 91. And I think Tim Bresnan, nipped him out, and the umpire's cool, and the umpire, obviously that was pre-DRS, well, India weren't using DRS. Yeah. And I remember just being fuming that, surely the umpire, Tendulkar on 91, who's giving Tendulkar out on 91? That's probably, one innings that stands out. Obviously, you've got Ollie Pope and the miracle of Hyderabad. There's so many great innings to choose from. Just trying to remember them off the top of your head is very difficult. Apologies for posting that one on you.
No, it's all right. You seriously tested me with some of the the all-time testers, actually.
That's what we try and do on Day One Cricket, Charlie. Don't worry.
Unreal.
But yeah, I think. Do you have any parting thoughts on the England India series before I let you go? Is there anything that you want to to get out?
I just think it will be evenly matched because of the conditions. I think Indian batsmen, it won't take them as long to get used to it. You know, normally it takes them a few tests to really get into their groove. But I think by the second test, I think a lot of these Indian batters will feel pretty comfortable in the conditions they're playing with. For me, Bumrah could win your 2 tests in that series. So if Bumrah stays fit and Bumrah fires, it's going to be a seriously tough series for England because of one man. And you're in danger then of putting all your thoughts and preparation into how to play Bumrah and lose out in other ways. So it's going to be an absolutely interesting series. England with the firepower they've got and India's kind of new birth. It'll be a great series.
No, I agree. I'm really looking forward to it. I think for once we could have an evenly matched India-England series. And I have a feeling that this could be, go down to the wire of the 5th test. Bumrah trying to win it. So let's hope that happens. Charlie, where can everyone find you on your socials and YouTube, etc.?
Just searching what's he on about. Maybe chuck on Cricket Podcasts there as well. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube as well. So make sure to subscribe and follow everywhere you can. And follow Day One Cricket as well.
You
can't not be followed to that if you're listening to this.
Anyway, Charlie, we've ran it up now. Appreciate you coming on and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too, Taran. Anytime.